Hello, fifth graders, and welcome to my second interactive read aloud video. Yesterday, I introduced you guys to a new interactive read aloud that I'm starting with you guys while we're not in the classroom, and it's called Out of My Mind by Sharon Draper. Yesterday, we were introduced to the main character named Melody, and what we know about her is that she is extremely intelligent, but she also is suffering from her inability to communicate with others. She can't walk, she can't talk, she can't write, she's stuck in her mind, basically, and we're reading it from her perspective, so it's a first-person narrative from her point of view. We haven't learned much yet other than that she is intelligent, and it kind of talks about the beginning portions of her life. We also know that as of now, she's almost an 11-year-old, so she's similar to you guys in age. And yesterday I also included for you guys a Google slide that I wanted you to answer some questions for me about the book that we've read up to that point. And I wanted you to make the slide as interesting and as unique as possible. Now, one of you, Mila, I believe, she went in and she decorated the slide, put some really cool colors and designs on there and fonts. I thought that was really cool. I love seeing that. Go ahead and make them as interesting as you want. By the end of this video, I will give you another activity that you guys can do with this interactive read aloud. Forewarning you though, baby is cranky. Okay, so I have my spit rag here because just a minute ago I was thrown up on, and that's just part of having a baby, I guess. So I might have to pause the video and come back on because Trenton is just not having it today, not having it right now. So hopefully you guys can stay patient with me while we get through this reading because it's such a good book, and I'm super happy that you guys are joining me as we're reading this. Okay, here we go. Chapter 3. I guess I figured out I was different a little at a time. Since I never had trouble thinking or remembering, it actually sort of surprised me that I couldn't do stuff, and it made me angry. My father brought me home a small stuffed cat for me when I was really little, less than a year old. It was white and soft and just the right size for chubby baby fingers to pick up. I was sitting in one of those baby carriers on the floor, strapped in and safe as I checked out my world of green shag carpet and matching sofas. Mom placed the toy cat in my hands, and I smiled. "Here, Melody, Daddy brought you a play pretty," she cooed in that high-pitched voice that adults use with children. Now, what's a play pretty? As if that's not hard enough figuring out the real stuff, I had to figure out the meanings of made-up baby words. But I loved the soft coolness of the little cat's fur. Then it fell on the floor. Dad placed it in my hands the second time. I really wanted to hold it and hug it, but it fell on the floor once more. I remember I got mad and I started to cry. "Try again, sweetie," Dad said, with sadness decorating the edges of his words. "You can do it." My parents placed the cat in my hands again and again, but every single time my little fingers could not hold it, and it tumbled back down to the carpet. I did my own share of tumbling onto that rug. I guess that's why I remember it so well. It was green and ugly when you looked at it up close. I think shag carpeting was outdated even before I was born. I had lots of chances to figure out how the threads of a rug are woven as I lay there waiting for someone to pick me up. I couldn't roll over, so it was just an irritated me, the shag rug, and the smell of spilled sour soy milk in my face until I got rescued. My parents would prop me up on the floor with pillows on either side of me when I wasn't in the baby seat, but I'd see a sunbeam coming through the window, turn my head to watch the little dust things that floated in it, and bam! I'd be face first on the floor. I'd shriek. One of them would pick me up, quiet me, and try to balance me better within the cushions. Still, I'd fall again in a few minutes. But then Dad would do something funny, like try to jump like the frog we were watching on Sesame Street, and it would make me giggle. And I'd fall over again. I didn't want to fall, or even mean to. I couldn't help it. I had no balance at all. None. I didn't understand at the time, but my father did. He would sigh and pull me up onto his lap. He'd hug me so close and hold up the little cat, or whatever toy I seemed to be interested in, so I could touch it. Even though he sometimes made up his own vocabulary, Dad never spoke baby talk to me like my mother did. He always spoke to me as if I were talking to a grown-up, using real words and assuming I would understand him. He was right. "Your life is not going to be easy, little Melody," he'd say quietly. "If I could switch places with you, I'd do it in a heartbeat. You know that, don't you?" I just blinked. But I got what he meant. Sometimes his face would be wet with tears. He'd take me outside. I saw a special on PBS once on children who were geniuses. These kids could remember complicated strands of numbers and recall words and pictures in correct sequence and quote long passages of poetry. So can I. I remember the toll-free number from every infomercial and the mailing address and websites too. If I ever need a new set of knives or the perfect exercise machine, I've got that information on file. I know the names of the actors and actresses of all the shows what time each program comes on, which channel and which shows are repeats. I even remember the dialogue from each show and the commercials in between. Sometimes I wish I had a delete button in my head. I have a television remote control clicker attached to my wheelchair, very close to my right hand. On the left side, I have a remote for the radio. I have enough control in my fist and thumbs to push the buttons so that I can change the station, and I'm really glad of that. 24 hours of big-time wrestling or the home shopping station can drive a person nuts. I can adjust the volume and even play DVDs if someone has popped one in for the player for me. Lots of times I watch Dad's old home videos, but I also like the cable channels that talk about stuff like kings and the kingdoms they conquered, or doctors and the diseases they've cured. I've seen specials on volcanoes, shark attacks, dogs born with 2 heads, and the mummies of Egypt. I remember them all word for word. Not that it does me a lot of good. Nobody knows it's there but me, not even my mother. Although she has this mom sense that knows I understand stuff, but even that has its limits. Nobody gets it. Nobody. Drives me crazy. So every once in a while, I really lose control. I mean, really. My arms and legs get all tight and lash out like tree limbs in a storm. Even my face draws up. I sometimes can't breathe real well when this happens, but I have to because I need to screech and scream and jerk. They're not seizures. Those are medical and make you go to sleep. These things, I call them my tornado explosions. Are pieces of me. All the stuff that does not work gets balled up and hyped up. I can't stop. Even though I want to. Even though I know I'm freaking people out. I lose myself. It can get kind of ugly. Once, when I was about 4, Mom and I were in one of those superstores that sells everything from milk to sofas. I was still small enough to fit in the child seat in the front of the cart. Mom always came prepared and stuffed pillows on each side of me so I wouldn't tilt. Everything was fine. She tossed toilet paper and mouthwash and detergent into the cart, and I looked around enjoying the ride. Then, in the toy section, I saw them. Brightly colored packages of plastic blocks. Just that morning, I had seen a warning on television about that toy. They were being recalled because the blocks had been painted with lead paint. Several children had already been hospitalized with lead poisoning, the report had said. But there they were, still on the shelf. Mom said, "No, sweetie, you don't need those. You have enough toys." I pointed again and screeched. I kicked my feet. "No," Mom said more forcefully. "You are not going to have a tantrum on me." I didn't want the blocks. I wanted to tell her they were dangerous. I wanted her to tell somebody to get rid of them before a child got sick. But all I could do was scream and point and kick. So I did. I got louder. Mom rushed out of the toy section, pushing the cart real fast. "Stop it!" she cried out at me. I couldn't. It made me so angry that I couldn't tell her. The tornado took over. My arms became fighting sticks. My legs became weapons. I kicked at her with my feet. I screamed. I kept pointing in the direction of those blocks. People stared. Some pointed. Others looked away. Mom got to the door of the store, yanked me out of the car, and left it with all of her selections sitting there. She was almost in tears when she got to the car. As she buckled me in my seat, she almost screamed at me, "What is wrong with you?" Well, she knew the answer to that one, but she knew that that was not my usual behavior. I gulped, sniffled, and finally calmed down. I hope the people in the store watched the news. When we got home, she called the doctor and told him about my crazy behavior. He sent a prescription for a sedative, but Mom didn't give it to me. The crisis was over by then. I don't think Mom ever figured out what I was trying to say that day. That is the end of chapter 3. It's a pretty intense chapter. Melody told us a lot in that chapter about how she felt growing up in terms of what she was experiencing by not being able to communicate with her parents. So it seems like her dad really understands that Melody's going to struggle in life. Her mom understands, but her mom also seems to have more of a difficult time with it. She seems sad by it. She seems frustrated by it. But regardless, it seems like they still love her and they want to give her the best childhood they can. Also by the sounds, or by reading that Melody wanted to warn her mom about the dangerous child toy, I, the reader, am making an inference, which is an educated guess, that Melody is a caring person. She wants to help people. She knows what the right choices are. She knows what to do. She wants to tell people what to do when they're given bad information or when they're not given information that could harm them. So I'm gathering that Melody's a kind and caring person. Now the next chapter is chapter 4. It's kind of a long chapter. I'm going to try to read it. I don't want to make these videos too long for you guys, but I'll try to get through it quickly and then give you guys the interactive challenge at the end of this chapter. Here it goes. Chapter 4. Doctors, where do I start? Doctors really don't get me. Mom's a nurse, so I guess she speaks their language, but they sure don't know how to talk to me. I've seen dozens of doctors in my life who all try to analyze me and figure me out. None of them can fix me, so I usually ignore them and act like the retarded person they think I am. I hate that word, guys. I hate that R word. You'll only ever hear me saying it when I'm reading it out of this book, but I hate it, okay? Just want to make that known. I pace on a blank look, focus on one wall, and pretend their questions are too hard for me to understand. It's sort of what they expect anyway. When I turned 5, it was time to think about enrolling me in school. So my mother took me to a doctor whose job it was to figure out how smart I was. She wheeled me in, locked the brakes so my wheelchair would not roll, and made sure the lap strap was fastened. When my seatbelt comes undone, and it does every once in a while, I slide out of the wheelchair like a piece of wet spaghetti. The specialist was a very large man. The bottom button of his shirt had come undone, and his stomach poked through above his belt. Gross. My name is Dr. Hughley, he said in a booming voice. For real, I couldn't make this stuff up. We are going to play a game today, okay? I'll ask you some questions, and you get to play with the toys here. Won't that be fun? I knew it would be a long, long hour. He brought out a stack of well-used, hopefully not lead-tainted wood blocks, then leaned in so close to me. I could see the pores in his face. Gross. Can you stack these in order according to size? He said loudly and slowly as if I were hard of hearing and really stupid. But who was being stupid? Didn't he know I couldn't grab the blocks? Of course I knew which block was bigger than the other, but I couldn't stack them if he paid me money. So I just took my arm and swept them all to the floor. They fell with a wooden clatter. I tried not to laugh as he picked them up. He breathed really hard as he reached for them. Next, he held up a glossy 8x10 card with different colors painted on each one. Tell me when you see the color blue, Melody, he said in that voice that told me he thought this was all a waste of time. When the blue card showed up, I pointed to it and made a noise. Bah! I said. Marvelous, tremendous, stupendous, he shouted. He praised me like I had just passed the test to get into college. If I could have rolled my eyes, I would have. Then he showed me green, so I kicked and made a noise, but my mouth can't make the g sound. The doctor looked disappointed. He scribbled something on his clipboard, pulled out another stack of cards, and then said loudly, I'm going to ask you some questions now, Melody. These might be hard, but do your best, okay? I just looked at him and waited while he placed the first set of cards in front of me. Number 1, which one of these is not like the others? Did he get this stuff from Sesame Street? He showed me the pictures of a tomato, a cherry, a round red balloon, and a banana. I knew he was probably looking for the balloon as the answer, but that just seemed too easy, so I pointed to the banana, because the first 3 were round and red, and the banana was not. Dr. Hughley sighed and scribbled more notes. Number 2, he said. He showed me 4 more cards. This time, there were pictures of a cow, a whale, a camel, and an elephant. Which animal gives birth to a calf? Now, I watch Animal Planet all the time. I know for a fact that all of the animals he had pointed to there had babies called a calf. I thought doctors were supposed to be smart. What to do? I hit each picture slowly and carefully, then did it once more just to make sure he understood. I don't think he did. I heard him mumble, "Cow," as he wrote some more notes. It was clear he was giving up on me. I noticed a copy of Goodnight Moon on his bookshelf. I think it was written in Spanish. It was called Buenos Noches, Luna. That would have been fun to look at, but I had no way of telling him I'd like to see the book. After watching Sesame Street and Dora the Explorer a million times, and sitting for hours watching the Spanish channels, I could understand quite a bit of Spanish if it was spoken slowly enough, and at least enough words to read the title of that book. He never thought to ask me about that, of course. I knew the words and melodies of hundreds of songs, a symphony exploding inside of my head with no one to hear it but me. But he never asked me about music. I knew all the colors and shapes and animals that children my age were supposed to know, plus lots more. In my head, I could count to 1,000 forward and backward. I could identify hundreds of words on sight, but all that was stuck inside. Dr. Hughley even though he had been to college for like a million years, would never be smart enough to see inside of me. So I put on my handicapped face and took my mind back to last summer when Mom and I went to the zoo. I really liked the elephants, but talk about stink. Actually, Dr. Hughley sort of reminded me of one of them. My mom and the doctors had no idea why I was smiling as we rolled into the waiting room while he wrote up his evaluations of me. It didn't take long. I'm always amazed at how adults assume I can't hear. They talk about me as if I'm invisible, figuring I'm too retarded to understand their conversation. I learned quite a bit this way, but this conversation was really awful. He didn't even try to soften the news for my mom, who, I'm sure, felt like she got hit by a truck. He began by clearing his throat. "Mrs. Brooks," he then said, "it is in my opinion that Melody is severely brain damaged and profoundly retarded." Whoa. Even though I was only 5, I had watched enough Easter Seals telethons to know this was bad. Really bad. I felt a thud in my gut. My mom gasped and then said nothing for a full minute. Finally, she took a deep breath and protested quietly. "But I know she's bright. I can see it in her eyes." "You love her. It's only normal to have wishful thinking," Dr. Hughley told her gently. "No, she has a spark. More than that, a flame of real intelligence. I just know it." My mother insisted, sounding a little stronger. "It takes time to accept limitations of a beloved child. She has cerebral palsy, Mrs. Brooks." "I know the name of her condition, doctor," my mother said with ice in her voice. "But a person is so much more than the name of a diagnosis on a chart." Good try, Mom, I was thinking, but already her voice was losing its edge, melting into the mushiness of helplessness. "She laughs at jokes," my mother told him, the ice in her voice replaced by desperation. Right at the punchline, Mom's voice faded. What she was saying sounded ridiculous, even to me, but I could see she just couldn't find the words to explain her gut feeling that I had some smart stuck in here. Dr. Hughley looked from her to me. He shook his head and then said, "You're lucky she has the ability to smile and laugh, but Melody will never be able to walk on her own or speak a single sentence. She will never be able to feed herself, take care of her own personal needs, or understand anything more than simple instructions. Once you accept the reality, you can deal with the future." That was just plain mean. My mom hardly ever cries, but she did that day. She cried and cried and cried. Dr. Hughley had to give her a whole box of tissues. Both of them ignored me while she sobbed and tried to find nice words to say to make her feel better. He didn't do a very good job. Finally, he gave her options. "You and your husband have several decisions to make," he told Mom. "You can choose to keep her at home, or you can send her to a special school for the developmentally disabled. There aren't many choices here locally." Where do they get those almost pleasant-sounding phrases to describe kids like me? Mom made a sound that could have been the mewing of a kitten. She was losing it. Dr. Hughley continued, You can also decide to put Melody in a residential facility where she can be cared for and kept comfortable. He pulled out a colorful brochure with a smiling child in a wheelchair on the cover and handed it to Mom. I trembled as she took it. Let's see, the doctor said. Melody is 5 now? That's a perfect age for her to learn to adjust to a new environment. You and your husband can get on with your lives without her as a burden. In time, her memories of you will fade. I stared at Mom frantically. I didn't want to be sent away. Was I a burden? I never thought about it like that. Maybe it would be easier for them if I weren't around. I gulped. My hands got cold. Mom wasn't looking at me. She was staring daggers at Dr. Hughley. She crumpled up the tissue she held and stood up. Let me tell you something, Doctor. There is no way in heaven or hell that we will be sending Melody away to a nursing home. I blinked. Was this my mother? I blinked again, and she was still there, right up in Dr. Hughley's face. She wasn't finished. You know what? My mother said as she angrily hurled the brochure into the trash can. I think you are cold and insensitive. I hope you never have a child with difficulties. You'd probably put it out with your trash. Dr. Hughley looked shocked. And what's more, she continued, I think you're wrong. I know you are. Melody has more brains hidden in her head than you'll ever have, despite those fancy degrees from fancy schools you've got posted all over your walls. It was the doctor's turn to blink. You've got it easy. You have all of your physical functions working properly. You never have to struggle just to be understood. You think you're smart because you have a medical degree? He was wise enough to keep his mouth shut and ashamed enough to lower his head. Mom was on a roll. You're not so intelligent, sir. You're just lucky. All of us who have all of our faculties intact are just plain blessed. Melody is able to figure out things, communicate, and manage in a world where nothing works right for her. She is the one with the true intelligence. She marched out of his office then, rolling me swiftly through the thick doors. In the hall, we did a quick fist bump. Well, the best I could manage. My hands were no longer cold. I'm taking you right now and enrolling you at Spalding Street Elementary School, she announced with determination as we headed back to the car. Let's get busy. Okay, that's the end of chapter 4. So we've learned quite a bit about Melody in chapters 3 and 4. We also learned that a little bit about Melody's mom too, and how she experienced, or how she embraces Melody's difficulties, as she puts it. Sorry, I'm waking the baby up. I'm talking too loud. And how she embraces Melody's difficulties. Here's your challenge or your activity for today's interactive read aloud. I want you just to simply draw me a picture of what you think Melody looks like. If you want to draw me a picture with pencil and pen, crayons, colored markers, or colored pencils or markers, or if you want to create a digital photo for me, go on Google Slides, find a digital image and make it all your own. If you want to make a word cloud of words that you think are used to describe who Melody is as a person, I want you today to find a way to express Melody, okay? If you are drawing a picture, and if you're able to take a picture of the picture, feel free to post it on the Google Classroom, okay? Or email it to me at duncank@hlcsk12.net. duncank@hlcsk12.net, okay? I want you guys to be as creative with this as possible. Just how do you think of Melody? You can do a word web. You can do a collage on Google. Draw a picture. Whatever it is you want to do, okay? That's what I want you guys to be focusing on today, okay? I hope you enjoyed these 2 chapters. Tomorrow I'll get back on here and post another video for you guys. This book is only just getting good. It has lots of good, interesting points to it further on, so I'm excited to share it with you. All right, I'm looking forward to seeing your creations of who you think Melody is, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.